You're listening to the Lux Life Discovered podcast, where we talk with people who are living a lifestyle that reflects their passion, because we believe everyone should be living their best life, their Lux Life. The show is hosted by Rick Steiner with Steiner Event Group, a premier national event planning company, and co-hosted by Shannon Richmond, the Vice President of the Panama City Beach Chamber of Commerce. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notifications of future episodes. The show is produced by 30A Media and is broadcast on your favorite podcast outlets, as well as YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TVs, and other major brand smart TVs.
Hello, welcome to Lux Life Discovered. I'm Rick Steiner. Very excited to have our guest, Debbi Sluys, with us today from Dare to Declare. So Debbi, welcome, and thank you for being on the podcast.
I am so excited to meet with you today.
Well, I tell you, we met recently, as you know, at the Alice, at the planners retreat that Kristen put together and brought in 55 planners from across the country to showcase the Alice in Destin and what it has to offer. And she had 3 workshops. One was the watercolor with Christy Rice. The other one was the vision board that you did, and then a yoga session. All 3 things that, being the only male planner that was there, way out of my comfort zone. And so the vision board, when it came up that, I saw that on the schedule, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because talking about it being out of the comfort zone completely, that was it. But you made it fun and you made it interesting. And I actually enjoyed it a lot.
I'm so glad, and you're not in, foreign company. There's so many people, men and women, that are a bit skeptical. They think maybe it's in the woo-woo realm, and so I'm really glad that you were just open to experience it fully and let me guide you step by step. So, I won't give away the ending here, but I know that it really touched you, and I was really excited to see you give in fully to the experience, which was amazing.
It's good. It's on the side of a cabinet in my office, so where I sit at my desk, it's off to the back side of that cabinet where I can see it. So I did put it up. It is there, and I did what you said.
So you can see it every day, is what you're saying.
Yes, definitely.
Excellent.
And then, so tell me how you got your whole vision for Dare to Declare and how this all began for you.
Well, it started where I spent 30 years in childcare. So it feels like childcare to vision boards. How does that happen? But it's not that big of a leap, actually. If you think about the way that children learn, they learn best through play and having fun. And that's something that you just said. It was a lot of fun. And so I'm always looking for activities, and I'm not going to learn if I'm not having fun. And I'm going to lose my attention. It's not going to keep my attention if I'm not having fun. So I know that children learn best through play, but I also I'm very curious, and in the new research that we're understanding about the way our brains develop and neuroplasticity. And so what I knew as an early child educator expert is that a child who doesn't receive the love and attention that they deserve, a child who's been abused, the brain actually shrinks, like physically shrinks, because the brain prunes itself. So that's why it's so important. Now we know as parents, we need to be reading to our children. We need to give them lots of vocabulary. We need to have the touch. This is why screen time can be so dangerous, because they need to have that eye contact from their parent, because the brain actually grows. And so that understanding around children's brains, and then connected into this idea of neuroscience, there you can maybe see the connection there, and the fun and the play. And then I'm also Christian, and so I was just curious around how can I live fully? How can I step into living a life of gratitude? Because I'm adopted, so that's another part of my story, and that I was adopted at 5 months old, and I've met both of my biological parents. And what I know, it's like being in the twilight zone. I can see what my life might have been had I not been adopted. And so, because I had siblings, actually one has already passed away, and the other, it's living a very challenging life. And so what I know is that God scooped me up as a baby and said, no, you're not supposed to be with this family. You're supposed to be over here. And so I feel this inner movement within me to say, how can I demonstrate gratitude for that? And the way that I do that is to live out my life fully. So with those pieces of it, of the puzzle as well, going back to my early years background, I'm in Ontario, Canada. That's where I live. And my childcare was one of 7 in my province that we piloted this new way of being for children. It came from Italy, Australia, and very cutting edge kind of way of being with children, much less artificial, more like the child leads the play. And so my childcare was one of the first to implement this in my province, and it had a radical transformation with my employees, well, with the children. The parents noticed it, and so people asked me to start sharing my story, like what's happening with the culture of your organization. The kids are calm and happy, and nobody, wants to leave. Everyone, you're attracting some of the best employees. And so that storytelling turned into public speaking. And I realized, maybe I could make a bigger impact, because my team was 75 people at that time, but I was starting to speak in front of hundreds and more, thousands of people around my province. And so all of that combined gave me this intuitive thought that, what if I'm meant for something bigger? And so I started to research. I found the work of Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Right.
Many people know his book, and he's also the godfather of vision boards. He wrote the book, The Success Principles. And so I started to consume all of his information online and realized that I think vision boards was going to be my tool to really put all those pieces, all the things that I had on my heart that I wanted to express and then share with others. And the other piece of this is I realized, I wasn't even sure then, but I suspected there was no one else doing it like this. And so I created my own curriculum. I built a studio with my husband in his warehouse on the second floor of his drywall and trim and paint warehouse, very industrial space, and then I built a very feminine space for the vision boards, and opened up shop in 2018.
So how was the reception when you opened up the vision board part of it? Because I could see people like me being skeptical, and then some that really embrace it. So what was your initial response?
So I went back to what I knew. So I was still in childcare. I was actually straddling both. I was still doing my role as childcare director of a multi-site, not-for-profit, and doing vision boards on the weekends. So I went back into the early years field and I said, I have something really unique. It's around personal development. And so because they already knew, and trusted me, because I was already speaking to them about the other piece around the play-based learning for children, and they saw that I was a leader, they got curious and interested, and they began to hire me. So that was really my entry in. And then I started to work with other corporate groups, such as real estate, financial planners. So I went to people that, somebody was handling my money, who was my realtor. So I started to work with teams who also deal in the business of imagination, because if you're a financial planner, you need to imagine what your future is going to be. If you're going to sell real estate, imagine your business or your home being there. And they really embraced it. So that's where I really started. And then the word got out and my reputation started to grow. But this was still all in person for those first 2 years.
Okay. And then COVID, what time, when was this? What time did you say, what year?
So I started in 2018. And then,
yeah. So when COVID hit, how did that affect you?
Well, what happened was, if I can back up a little bit before that. So 2019, I was at two things happened. One, my new baby grandson was born. And my daughter, I was laying in bed with her. I had been privy to his birth, like the miracle of his birth. It was just incredible. And we were laying in bed together, my daughter and I, the baby beside us, and she whispers, "Mom, why don't you leave your job?" And I said, "Oh, honey, I'm making $60,000 a year. I'm hanging on to that paycheck. That's really scary to step into being an entrepreneur full time." And so that she planted a seed, why don't you? What's stopping you from stepping full time into that? And what I knew was the fear of scarcity around money. I had a situation around my health earlier that year. A family was suing me for some wrongdoing that they thought was of mine, and I was exonerated, but it took a whole year a file like that with lawyers and all the things involved. So the stress of that had actually caused me to have a mini stroke at work. And so, so I knew my health was also an issue if I continued to stay at the pace and where I was.
Right.
And then the second thing that happened was I was at a conference and a woman posed this question. She said, "What's the price you're paying for not following your dream?" And I thought, well, the price is my health, actually, because now I have a permanent little spot on my brain from this little mini stroke. And then she followed up and said, "What's the price those around you are paying for you not following your dream?" And I thought, my little grandson, he's paying the price, and my daughter. And my daughter actually has a twin as well. And so I thought my four kids, like, they deserve to have a mom who's also present and who's stepping into her passion, into her dream. I get to also show that this is possible. So in that moment, that was October 2019, I decided I was going to give my board of directors notice. Now, I gave them notice, and I gave them 6 months because I'd been there for 30 years, and that was January 2020. So this is just before COVID
Perfect
happened.
timing.
Yeah, yeah. And so really scary. I was preparing, I was hiring my successor, I was cleaning up all my, I had 3 offices. So if you've ever moved before, like, just, I had stuff all over. My fingers were through everything in this organization, even though it was not for profit. I treated it as though it was my own. So really wanted to clean things up. And then in the middle of that, a pandemic happened. And all of a sudden the childcares are closed. Families want to know what's happening. This is when we thought it was going to maybe be 3 weeks. The health unit keeps changing the regulations. People are wanting to know who's going to, be our new boss, all the things. And so what I did during that time was I hired a coach. So I do what I say other people, I say hire a coach, but that's what I did. I hired a coach. And she said, "Deb, why don't you try vision boards online?" And I said, "I don't know if that's going to work." So what I did was I did a little mini workshop called a power word, which is a word for your year. Now, you and I didn't do that workshop together, but this is a smaller one that I do, which is only an hour or 90 minutes. Because that year, my word going into 2020 was generous. And so every time the health unit was at my door, parents wanted to know what was going on, I would say, "Deb, take a deep breath. What would my most generous self do?" And I would show up as her. And so I knew that it worked. It actually, I had a word a number of years ago prior to that I had offered to my childcare, and it was the word kindness. And the word kindness had taken a radical, just swept through our organization and changed the culture of our organization, a single word. So I knew this was really powerful. So I created this little workshop. I attracted 65 people. I created 10 paying clients from that. And I was like, all right, Lord, I guess I'm supposed to keep going and exit. So I did. And so then I did end up retiring from the childcare, step full-time into my global, then what became a global company, was because then I hired another coach. And that's when it was confirmed that no one else is doing vision boards in the world like I am, combined with the success principles, my Christian faith, the neuroscience, and the very intentional way of creating the board so that it works.
Right. Well, and honestly, I had no vision board experience before this workshop, so I didn't really know what to expect. And then, also that skepticism, like, we're just going through a little practice here, it's not really going to matter, but it does. If you really take it serious and you really apply what you tell people, I mean, I bet you're surprised at people's reactions as well.
I'm not surprised as much anymore, because I've been doing this for a while. So there are some people who dismiss it as just frivolous, or they want to do it like a fun little paint activity, kind of like a paint by number kind of thing. Or it's like, it's very woo-woo, like it gets on the way, way woo side too. So I'm somewhere in the middle there. So no, I'm not very too surprised by people's responses, but what I do now have is a lot of confidence in my proven process. And so I set really clear boundaries. Like, Kristen gave me in our retreat 4 hours, right? And I mean, that was a whole morning. The yoga was an hour, the painting was just but I said to Kristen, like, I can't do less than that. Like, I need to give them this full experience. We got to do exercises to open up the brain. And then we got to, talk about some beliefs that might be holding them back. And then I got to give them full time to choose their images. So there's some things that I won't compromise on. Yeah. Yeah. So the retreat that you and I were at, Kristen had said, can you do it in 4 hours? Now, typically I do 6 hours, but, and I've had it, as I said earlier, sometimes in real estate, like they're on their phone. They're like, I can give you 2 hours, but I'm like, no, this deserves a full day of your time. Like, this is one of the most important days of your year. What's more important than getting clarity and focus on what you really want? And so, so Kristen and I came to the compromise of the 4 hours versus 6. I took a few things out, but now I know it can be done in 4. But yeah, there's some things that I won't compromise, and that I want to make sure that people have the most optimal experience as well, because I hope that you have that, Rick, like you've already got yours sitting there, that, your board is attractive to you and that you want to use it because it's a hardworking tool.
Well, and I'm glad that you don't compromise and try to do like a even quicker version of what you do, because people would lose some of the that touch and that just the whole experience, because they would leave thinking, well, that was quick, or whatever. They wouldn't get that whole experience. So I think it's good that you do that.
Well, there's a framework that I use that's called, it's right in my title of my company, it's Dream, Discover, Declare. So
Right.
that's the framework. So we get into the dreaming because most of us as adults, we've kind of forgotten how to dream unless we're in the business of that. Like it's or we're like a creative, like an artist or maybe a interior designer. But many people have forgotten how to dream like they did when they were little and children. So I like to have exercises to dial that up, to ask questions like, if you had all the time and money in the world, what would you do? Or the exercise that you did, what do you want? Where I set it on a timer. So it's just like really fast. You just got to spit it out, what it is that you really want. And then the discover is where you get into the materials, like the actual physical images, and you allow your intuition to speak clearly. Like, okay, what do I want? I thought I wanted these things, but maybe that's not what's really most important in my life. And so you're just looking at the images, feeling it in your body as you make those choices. But then the other piece I think that makes my process really unique is the declaring piece. And I know that you really enjoyed that too. And that's one of my favorite parts of the day, is when everyone holds their board and then, they say it out loud as if. So it's not like, oh, I hope, I wish, but declaring it as though this is already happening in their life. So so dream, discover, declare. So those are the 3 pieces of my framework that, I don't want to compromise on.
Okay. And I think that's great. So, and you have a Dare Declare workshop coming up next year. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, and your
Sure.
guest speaker and MC? And
Yeah, so it's a conference and it's going to be in Niagara Falls. For those that are Canadian, be a little more specific, Niagara on the Lake. So it's just outside of Niagara Falls. It's a beautiful, historic little town. And it's a beautiful hotel called the White Oaks Resort. It has a spa attached to. So I know I have some other American friends who are flying in, and they're going to make it a little bit more than 3 days. They're going to add some time ahead and after, just because it's right in wine country and stunning. And, the Niagara Falls is right there. So if you haven't been in a while, it's definitely worth the trip. And my keynote is Brian Proctor. Now, his dad was Bob Proctor, who passed away this February, will be 2 years ago. And Bob Proctor was in the movie The Secret alongside Jack Canfield, Lisa Nichols, and so many other greats. So The Secret is considered the movie for personal development, especially all around law of attraction, around manifestation. You can find it, I think, for free on YouTube if you want to check that movie out. But Bob was in there. He was an accomplished motivational speaker, very wise, very well studied. And so Brian has picked up his work, and his recent book that he released, I think it's maybe a year ago, is My Father Knew the Secret. And so Brian has picked up, and it actually even looks like his father. It's really interesting. So he's going to be my keynote. So I'm really happy to have him be part of this, as well as his wife, Corey. Corey, she spent many years with Bob. She was his assistant. So she's very knowledgeable in all this work around manifestation. And then my MC, because an MC can make an event, you know, I really believe that they bring up the energy and keep, you know, have the almost like little mini keynotes in between each of the events. So Bill Schuenhauer, he's a three-time Olympian, silver medalist, bobsledding, and he's coming in to provide that beautiful piece around being an MC. I have a DJ. The reason I think that's fun is because music is a really big component as well of this work because it sets the tone. We want to keep the energy up, but it's also when you're looking for pictures, we want to I don't know if you remember, Rick, but I intentionally play certain type of music. It's with the cello, with the vibration. So music's going to be a really big piece of this as well. So, and then I'm going to be giving the power word, little mini vision board workshop, as well as the full vision board experience on those days. And then we're going to have the culmination of the conference will be a come as you will be dinner, meaning that the dinner, like, so at the end, when you declare your board, then at the dinner, I'm going to encourage everyone to show up as the version of themselves from their vision board.
Now, have you done that before at any of your conferences before?
This is my first conference.
Okay, all right.
But it is a Jack Canfield activity. I am certified as a Canfield Success Principles trainer. And so I've done it a couple of times with Jack. He actually normally leads this. I was just in California this past June when we had that. And I was like, you know, that just feels right. I want to do that as well. Jack is retired now, so I get to pick up the baton and carry on his work in this way. So yeah, really excited for that too. So there's going to be a lot of interactive pieces of this conference. It's not going to be your classic, you know, listen to just keynote after keynote. It's going to be more interactive, and you're going to have something to take home, like you did, Rick, where you have your board and then carrying on. So yeah, and also I think you got one of these too. I have a planner.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is a goal planner. So then I'm going to also talk to participants on how to have consistent habits that and setting goals that will support you to achieve your big vision and use that planner. Yeah.
So once you started this path after your career with childcare, what has been the most rewarding aspect of this so far? Is there any, like, one or two things that you could nail down that you have really been pleased with that maybe even surprised you?
Mm-hmm. I now have a legacy business. That surprised me. I did not start out my business thinking that I would be training others. So I had my studio, I was doing vision boards, and like I said, then I found out through COVID that I was doing them in a very unique way because people from the UK, Ireland, the United States, Canada were all telling me, Deb, no one's doing vision boards like you. And then they asked me, could we use your stuff? Like, you know, I'm like, sure, just give me credit, I guess. I don't know. Because they said, well, everybody does vision boards, but no one knows how to do them with a framework like yours and very intentionally and with the results that you're getting. So I just felt this big nudge again, just like I had when I started my company. And it was like the Holy Spirit was like, beep, beep, beep. You need to do something bigger. And so that's when I got to level up. And so I hired a course content creator and then I created an academy. So now I train trainers to use my proven process in their business. And so in the last 4 years, we have 60 graduates and in 5 different countries who are now using the Dare to Declare vision board framework in their business. And when you ask me that question, what's so rewarding is knowing that I created it and I really had it for early child educators. That was on my heart. Like I wanted to support people that are working with young children. Now I have people that are working with families in grief. I have a coach who works with women who are navigating gray divorce, like in their 50s and 60s, navigating divorce. I have a physician. I have a cardiologist in Ireland. He is just killing it with vision boards. He runs a health program so that people don't need his services as a cardiologist. And so he includes vision boards as part of that. I have network marketing people. I have graduates who are Indigenous. And so like I get goosebumps every time I talk about it. So she said, Deb, the vision board is bringing the youth back to the lodge. And so there's a whole movement here in Canada for reconciliation, because there's such a scourge on our history and the way that we were with Indigenous peoples, and pulling children from their home and putting them in residential schools. And I mean, it's just horrific what happened with the children, and we're finding graves of just children. So there's a whole reconciliation movement, and the two ladies who are part of my academy now are part of that reconciliation movement. They speak in front of universities. Well, now with the vision board component, they've just added this to their toolkit, and they're saying, combined with the ancient teaching of Indigenous peoples, they now have a tool to bring the teachings forward. Like the vision board is bringing people to the table. So it's just so exciting that, like, I have one idea, and now the ripple effect, I don't mean to sound cliche, but the ripple effect, that's like, I never expected that. And every time one of my clients is working with mothers and daughters, or, like Kristen, with wedding planners, within the bridal industry, that we could do a vision board for couples who want to plan their wedding. There's so many applications. I just feel this overwhelming sense of gratitude.
Well, you cover like the financial part, the real estate market, agents, that type of thing. I would have never thought about all of that being part of it, much less the other areas that you mentioned. So it really covers every aspect of life, doesn't it?
It really does. And actually, this weekend, I'm flying home, and I'm going to be speaking in Niagara Falls in front of 200 realtors. From the stage, I'll be delivering that little power word, so a word for their year. So yeah, so it just, so many different genres that it fits into. But it also, I've worked with children as young as 10 years old. And the really cool thing can I share a quick story about that?
Yeah.
So it was in a private school, and the teacher brought me in, and instead of asking the kids, if you had all the time and money in the world, what would you want? Because I have 4 kids. My kids didn't care about money, and my kids didn't care about time, really. Like, they just didn't really pay attention to those things. So I said to the children, if you had all the help, all the resources that you needed, what would you do to make the world a better place? And so the kids got really into that provocation, into that question. So I had a little guy, and he came up as they were completing their cards. He's like, Mrs. Sluys, I can't figure out my word. And I said, oh, well, let's go back to that initial question. What would you do if you had all the help you needed? How would you make the world a better place? And he said, well, you know how there's some diseases that don't have cures? And I said, yes. And he said, I think that the answers are in the ocean. I was like, my mouth dropped open, and I said, you are going places. I'm going to keep an eye on you, fella. Like, amazing. And so I said, you sound like you're an adventurer or an explorer. He said, I am an adventurer. So imagine at 10 years old having that spoken over you. I am an adventurer. How that would impact decisions going forward. If someone tries to make you less than, to say, no way, I'm an adventurer. I can tackle this. I can do this.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's just incredible that I love working with kids, because, if the earlier the better. We can start to instill these kind of affirmations.
Words will stay with them forever and give them power that, somebody else would have maybe kind of like, brushed off and not really thought about, but that's going to have a huge impact on his life.
I truly hope so. I believe so. Yeah. Because I know it does for adults. So I can only imagine for children. And in fact, the teacher told me that the kids, the whole class, took their cards. Some of them kept them in their desks. Some of them put them in their lockers. But it became something that they visually paid attention to, had a connection to. And I like to have it be like an I am statement. So I am, and whatever that word is that you're going to insert in there. And so making decisions, filtering your life decisions through that word. Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. And we need that as adults too, because sometimes we get so caught up in our routine, and we become become complacent sometimes, or we become content. And we need that challenge. So like, okay, what's it? And we go through different phases of life. And sometimes we need that challenge as we go through a new phase, new, season of our life, is those changes are welcome and the challenges should be welcome. So we accomplish the most of that out of every season. So, well, listen, thank you so much for being with us. This has gone by quickly than I thought it would, and good gracious, it's been fun. And like I said, so nice to meet you at the Alice in Destin last week. That seems like that's been a month ago, but it was just a week ago. It's crazy. And so we've got your information up on the screen here for people to contact you. And you're on Instagram, and we're at your website and email. And so anytime you want to come back on and share another adventure you're on or another part of your life, we'd love to have you back.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here and your insightful questions and drawing out these fun stories. So thank you for giving me the space to share that.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for joining us for Lux Life Discovered. We'll see you next time on our next episode.
Check out Lux Life Discovered on Facebook and Instagram and on 30a.tv. See you next time on Lux Life Discovered.